All right, getting back to work on my Giesler boat here. If you've been following along, this is video number 3. And I just want to say I made a mistake, a big mistake, and I'll tell you about it as we go. Here I am. I'm going to start sanding the sides, and I'm going to do a little cleaning before I get started. And I'll tell you the mistake I made. It's an amateur mistake, but it was a pretty unreversible mistake because I'm further along than this video shows. I'm about 2 more videos past this one before I really sat down and thought about what I did. I think I'm going to get past it. I have to. I don't have any choice. But kind of really bummed me out that I did something so stupid. But we'll get into that in a few minutes. I wanted to just start cleaning the sides up a little bit, and I just used my rotational sander, and you have to be careful. You don't sand the head of the nails too much. You don't want to sand the heads off, and I just worked it around. And so as we get on to this next part of the video, I'm going to start making the transom, and that's basically what this video is going to be about, making the transom. And you'll see my mistake. And right now the transom's in, and I'm past that. But I just didn't have the heart to make the video till now. All right, here's my mistake. Here I am. I'm cutting the pieces for the transom. I went to the lumber yard, and I bought the wood. And I don't know what got into my head, but I bought red oak. And there probably isn't a worse wood you can use for a boat than red oak. I don't know what I was thinking. I knew red oak wasn't good, but it just slipped my mind. I think I was headed for white oak, and something in my mind flipped over. Maybe I'm getting old. But the problem with red oak is it's like straws. The end grain's like straws, and it sucks up the water. But I'm past that now. The transom's in by the time I made this video and the time I really thought about it. So I got to work with it. I'm going to try to seal the end grain the best I can. And we're going to live with it. So here I bought the wood. I planed some 1 1/4 inch. I planed some 1 inch, and I planed some 3/4, and I'm ready to make the transom. All right, I got my boards laid out. I cut the 1-inch boards. I'll put aside for later. And I'll try and lay out my boards so that they look the best, so that they fit best. I'll kind of flip the grains around to give it some strength. And I'll mark off the high spots so that when I run it, I don't have a big bed on my joiner, so when I run it through the joiner, I'll be able to tell where the high spots are so I can kind of get it straight. I'll just kind of flip them around and mark them out so that they look right. After I get them all laid out the way I want, I make a big triangle on the face so that I remember which is the face side, and I remember what order they go in. I take them over to the joiner, and I join one side to get one side straight. One side straight, then you can cut the second side on the table saw so that you know that that second side's parallel with the first side. Make sure the fence on your joiner is square with the table. I've done that a few times. If it's off a little bit, your boards don't glue up right. So just make sure that's square, and you'll get a nice straight joint, and then take it over to the table saw. I decided I was going to use a live tenon, so I set my dado up for 3/8 cut, and I ran my pencil mark on my face always to the same side, the either the fence side or the opposite side, and I just took two or three cuts, and I cut a 3-inch tenon mortise in there, and then I found some pieces that I planed up 3/8 of an inch thick, and I'm going to glue it all together and make a solid transom out of it. There's my pieces I have ready to go. So I took my old transom and I made sure the bottom was straight, and basically there's two different angles, the sides and the bottom. So I got my angle gauge and I set the angle, and I set that on my circular saw, set up a gauge to run it along, and I cut it across the bottom at the angle of the bottom of the transom. The angle on the sides is a little bit different, so I reset the circular saw and changed the angle and cut the two sides. I laid the old transom on top and I marked it. Now, the two notches at the top where the gunnels go, I made a mistake and marked them and cut them out before I tested it. And I would first get your transom up to the boat and mark those, because the height changes. So if you mark it off the old transom, the notches for the gunnel will be off, like mine. I fixed it, but that was just a pain in the neck. After I cut the two sides, I cut the corners, the rounded corners on the bandsaw, and I just cut them square. And I used my hand planer, and I blended the angles from the bottom of the transom to the sides of the transom together. Just had to make sure you use a nice sharp blade and try and follow the line the best you can. And cut your corners off, and you'll have your transom done. Just about ready. I set it in the vise and just used my electric sander. Not my planer, my sander. I used the electric sander and just blended the two corners together. And it came out looking pretty good. Again, the two spots where the gunnels go, there's little notches there, and I wish I would have waited to cut those because the height's different. Now it looks there's a little bit of sagging on the sides, but that pushes right in. Came out, the fit was pretty good. The only problem I had was those two notches, but we had to make some pieces to fit in there. I left the two sides up taller so that I'll plane that off in the end. Then I marked my boat mount, and I cut that off, and I just cut that off with the hand saw and my electric saw and cut that out. Use my sander and sanded it up. Then once I got that done, all I did was duplicated all the pieces that mounted to the transom. I had that piece that came out of where the boat mounts. I used that for the 1 1/4 for the two angled boat extra supports. I cut those up, and I just remade all the pieces just like they sat. So I have all my pieces made up. One thing I would have done different, I put my transom in, then I put these pieces on. I'd have put the outer pieces on and sanded them in place first before I put the ball in one piece. But I put the one-piece transom in, and then I added all the pieces to it. I would have probably done it the other way next time. And I gave it a quick sanding with my belt sander, and the next video we'll put the transom in. Thanks for watching.